What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another session of some UFL talks. So we're going to start off today. First, I want to say thank you guys to the ones that have been watching. It really means a lot. Otherwise, the news of the day, the UFL has announced their next city. Next, not the team name yet, but we know at least where it's going to be. So the UFL today has actually announced that they will be making spring football's return back to Oklahoma, more specifically Oklahoma City. So we're in for a treat. The one question, a few questions remain. Where are they going to play? What's the team going to be called? How's that roster going to be assembled? So there's going to be a lot of questions. We'll see them back spring of 2028, more than likely, maybe 2027. It's hard to say, but we will see exactly how things shake out. More than likely, it should be 2028. So we'll see if we get some teams back next year. I would not be surprised if maybe we see a return of some in 2027, but more than likely we'll be sitting at our stable 8 teams for another year. But 2028 comes around, we at least know where we're going to have a team. It'll be Oklahoma City. So should be a good time. You think about the basketball team, they're doing very well. The Thunder are quite successful, so why not bring some professional football to the city? And if you think about this state, really big football fans. So pretty exciting. I'm surprised, for one, that they announced it so early, but it is good to know, and it will be a big storyline over the next year, maybe even 2 years, depending on how the season turns out. Repo really excited about it. He was very happy to announce it, and really, as he says, it's a no-brainer. This state really shows up. They care about about football, and they know football well. The college football team, one of them at least, made the college football playoff last year. So there is some big fan bases for football in the state. So it is exciting to hear. But the real question is, where are they going to play? So that will be the maps for multi-purpose stadium. So this is kind of a rendering for it. There is not currently a stadium that could hold a professional football league or any professional sports team. Really no venue in Oklahoma City. So kind of a disappointing situation for the city now, but as soon as this gets built, they'll really be in for a special treat. You kind of get a look at these renderings. 2028, at least with the UFL, it's going to be a massive kickoff. The city, more than likely, will be showing out because, as I said, the state is big on football, and it could draw a lot of people to the city, so they're very much behind it. So you kind of get a better look at the renderings here. Smaller stadium, that's what we're going for here with the UFL, and it's really unique to see what could become not only of the city, but really of the team if it comes here. It's been a long time since spring football's been in the league. In the state of Oklahoma. So we'll see what happens. But as we continue, really strong state for football. You want to be in these markets, especially ones that do not have professional football. So you not only, this is the thing I'm surprised they're not bringing up, is the spring football side of things, but you got University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, great football schools, really good programs and very competitive. Then you got the stadium, which is really going to be exciting, and I think that's where people will really have a very good time, especially in this city, because it's really some nice new construction. Going to be $121 million taxpayer funded, so it's going to be nice, and they're really building it for themselves, which I think the city will kind of show out for. So they're going to have more than 10,000. I'm not sure that we know the exact number. It should be between 10 and 20,000, but we're kind of still seeing exactly how things fit in the as it's being constructed. But generally doing pretty good, or at least the city is, and hopefully the team will. Here's another rendering what it might look like. We'll see exactly what it looks like, but the Oklahoma City Energy Football Club, they're really going to be the main team playing in this stadium. So really, they're going to be the home team, and then the UFL, similar to how they're playing in some of the other new cities, kind of just playing in those soccer stadiums. That's pretty much what we can expect. So I want to talk now, since we know kind of the future of the Oklahoma City team, let's look at the past. So really, this says Arizona Outlaws, and that's kind of when this team ended and folded. But really, it starts in Oklahoma as the Outlaws. So really, a history in the state, at least for the spring football team. And ultimately, I would like to say that there could be still some fans left from that original team. But what happened to them, so we can kind of look at the opening roster, pretty solid team. I don't know any of these names. I don't know that many people do. But regardless, they really did show out. And the 1984 USFL season is kind of known pretty far and wide. So you can see, what do we have here? Red and so we've got our away games in red. Man, they played a lot of football games. So they got the Michigan Panthers. So this is a look back kind of at the USFL in 1984. So you got the Tampa Bay Bandits, a loss versus the Houston Gamblers. Those have returned to the UFL. So it'll be interesting to see if any of these other teams make a return. So we got the Pittsburgh Maulers, Denver Gold, San Antonio Gunslingers, Chicago Blitz, Arizona Wranglers is who this team will merge with in the future and become the Arizona Outlaws. Then we got the Michigan Panthers. They were in it. We've lost them. They'll probably make a return. Washington Federals. We'll see if they ever make a return. Probably not, seeing as the DC Defenders are doing so well. Then we got the Jacksonville Bulls, the New Jersey Generals. I'd like to see the Generals return. They might. We'll see. Then we've got, of course, the Stallions, Chicago Blitz, Los Angeles Express, and the San Antonio Gunslingers. So really, they've got a history in the state. Head coach was Woody Widenhofer, and unfortunately, they did end up moving because the league did struggle back in at the time. So thankfully, we've been able to kind of get a look at their return. So it'll be good to have another team back in spring football. So very exciting time, I think, for the league and really for the state of Oklahoma as well as the city of Oklahoma City. So now I want to transition into kind of give us a recap of week 2. We had 4 games, of course. Little wacky of a schedule, and there was some kind of movement from the beginning of the season to today, or when the season occurred. So, DC Defenders taking on the Columbus Aviators. That was our Friday game. Our Saturday game, we had the Kings at the Storm. Sunday, we had the Stallions at the Gamblers. And then a Tuesday game, which is kind of a unique thing for, I would think, professional football. But really, the game was, I think, had good viewership and really was a good game to watch, and it was competitive. So let's start with the Defenders and the Aviators. So Defenders kind of put a whooping on the Aviators, but ultimately it was more a question of which team got more comfortable playing with each other first. So then we look at the box score. Really, they kind of just wreaked havoc on them. So second and third quarter is really when they got all their points. They did not possess the ball very much. I think if we can see on the recap here, the time of possession. Yeah, so 26-33. So they lost out on time of possession, but the reason that is because they were going down and scoring on the field so fast. So if we kind of take a look, how did our teams do? Tamu, interceptions. What's up with that? Every week we've thrown 1 interception at least, so that's kind of a question mark moving forward, and it may hold the team back a little bit. But they were kind of throwing, unnecessary passes at a time. McClendon also has an interception, 2 TDs though, which was nice. His interception though was kind of unimpactful, let's say. Then we go to Russian, Jackson, tearing it up, making a name for himself. I expect this to continue, kind of picking up where he was last year. McClendon, this is a problem. You do not want your quarterback being your leading rusher. So I'd like to see one of these running backs. My hope is White kind of take a larger role, and then we see Toatawa in kind of more goal line situations, and then Lovett out there for some passes. We'll see what happens, but I do think they do kind of need to figure out this rushing game, whereas the Defenders have kind of got theirs in shape. Rushing, Powell, of course, leading the way for the Defenders. In the this is where I have questions for the Aviators. Who's going to be your number one receiver? Uh, not a problem to distribute the load, but if we're going to pass to the level that they've been, they need to have some more consistent receptions on the field. And defense, they did pretty good. Safety did all right, kid. So let's take a look. Deion Jackson, really, really, really good job. 12 total touches, 126 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Pretty impressive showing out of the running back. So if we continue on, what's our picture? So another picture of Jackson, but that 44-26. And one thing I will say, Columbus showed up. So while they may not have won, the fans had a great time. We had a lot of people there. It was a good showing. Halftime was good. It was really well enjoyed, I feel like. And what I like about this stadium is that they have got a very unique design where you really are kind of completely encasing the field. So that was cool. But if we continue on, everyone there seemed like we had a good time. We got 12 gauge here. Good time all around, and I'd like to see how the Columbus fan base shows out for the rest of the season. But looking at our next game, the Kings versus the Storm. Storm kind of put a whooping on them, but it's more a showing of the Kings, I think, than it is of the Storm. So kind of similar time of possession splits as the last game that we were looking at, and yardage really wasn't that different. But the Kings, and this has seemed to be starting to kind of seem like a trend, is that they have self-inflicted wounds. So they're fumbling, they're throwing interceptions, they're doing all these things that make you not win football games, and it's made them not win football games. So unfortunately for them, they do have some improvements needed. When you look at the passing, we do kind of have a split, so like that could lead to some questions. But ultimately, you got to find a quarterback that works for you. And Plummer really doing a good job for Storm, and I honestly would expect him to really start to rise in possibly the MVP rankings, especially as his passing yards on the season start to tick up. Bean, we'll see if he gets back in there. A couple questions on his part, but really the question is how many interceptions can we throw in a game? How many takeaways are we going to give them? So that is a question for them. And then when it comes to rushing, Snell kind of getting a lot of carries, but not a lot of results. So there are questions, especially when it comes to their rushing game. I feel like both teams really could see an improvement in their rushing game, but as it stands right now, the Storm is more dominant. So when they face off again, it'll be interesting to see how they compare, week to week. Corbin doing all right for them. Then if we continue, we have our receiving. So we got McKitty and Badger kind of leading the way. So really distributed load, I'd say, across the Kings wide receiver room. And then also for the Storm, really, really doing well. And Badger did well as well. Really, all around, I think the Storm are starting to become a really, really competitive football team. Then if we continue, look at Badger, 182 yards through two games. Pretty impressive work. And you look at his snag, he's got skills. He's got talent. There's no, as well with Plummer throwing the ball, we got 2 touchdowns, 110 QBR. Really, really doing well. So I expect the Storm to not only rise in the power rankings as we take a look at them, but continuing our look, the fan base, this is where I have questions for Orlando. Florida you'd think would be really showing out for spring football. But there are questions because I believe their attendance did go down. But that question is the fan base going to show out? What are the problems? Because the team's doing well. So, it can't be team performance keeping people away. Maybe it's commute. I don't know exactly what it is. But hopefully as the season goes on and the team takes root, we'll see a larger fan base presence out of our Florida crowd. Our next game, the Birmingham Stallions taking on the Houston Gamblers. eventually. It is loading at a snail's pace. So kickoff time was 6 p.m. They did kind of move this. They have been kind of moving the games around, but the Stallions ultimately, most thought we're going to win this game. I believe the line was 7.5. And let's just say, never a bad thing when the gamblers can pull off a little bit of a shocker on the champs. But if we continue going, the real story of the game here was Houston really starting to tighten up their team, and it was impressive to watch. You know, in real time, going week 1 to week 2. Not only did the offense look better, the defense started to seem more competent. There are questions there, of course, but I expect Houston to really be competitive this year. So kind of exciting for them. Because last year it did take them a while to get their wins. So as unfortunate as that is, you know, they did well and they had the ball the whole damn game. So when you look at yardage, 407 yards, 287. Why was the score so close? Well, a lot of takeaways they gave up. So 76 plays compared to 46. They ran 30 more plays, so not great for them. Passing is really where they led the way, and that is a surprise. Most wouldn't expect that out of the Gamblers, but their passing game really came together, and honestly, I think part of the reason they won this game. But as we continue looking at kind of the players, how everything matched up, Matt Corral did well, 226 yards, but 2 interceptions. What are we doing there? That's a question. That's looking like 2024, 2025 Matt Corral. We want to see some improvements, but I think he'll do well. You know, it's a tough place to play. The game was sloppy. It was raining the whole day. But Henderson and Deckers, they got in there. Henderson really did well. That 90.1 QBR, 186 yards, really what Houston needed to see. So it was good to see them have a better showing. Rushing game out of the Stallions, though, what is going on there? We need to see that kind of improve. 10 attempts for 17 yards, you know, that's not going to work. So there are some questions. Is it an offensive line issue? Is it a running back issue? We'll see how things go in week 3. Gamblers as well. Definitely some questions, but they were getting some results in their rushing game. So really how they racked up a lot of their yards. Then when we look at our receiving, our wide receiver room, 63, 70 yards, really good job. I think the Stallions, probably their best part of their offense is their passing attack. But then when you look at the Gamblers, could do from some improvement, but really started to come together. And that's what I think they're most going to be most proud of on this game. And we'll see how things match up going into week 3. Tough games for both of these teams. So we'll see what happens. So our next game, Battlehawks at the Renegades. So most, I think, thought this would be a much closer game than it was. And I did not. I kind of expected it to go about the same way that it did. So if we look at how things went for the Renegades, if it'll let me scroll down. Oh, snap. Let's try this again, huh? All right, so 27 to 32 time of possession, so pretty evenly matched, but the yardage is really different. And the play is pretty similar, but one just seemed to be a little more effective, and it really came down to the pass yards. That's really what has been setting the pace in the league this year, and I only expect that to continue. Rushing yards, not too much this game. So let's take a look at our Silvers. Did a good job. I did like to see his mom out there. 2 interceptions though. We gotta tighten up. I don't know if we're gonna look to a different option at quarterback if I'm the Battlehawks. But if this performance continues into week 3, I think I look for a change. Reed did well. That interception, you don't like to see that, but 4 touchdowns. Come on. He's really setting the pace in this league, and I would be surprised if he's back in the UFL next year. Then when we get to our rushing attack, not great out of the Battlehawks. I think it's an offensive line issue. I don't know exactly, but there are some questions there. However, the real impressive performance came out of Tyler Vaughn's. 11 receptions, 146 yards, 3 touchdowns. Set a UFL record, 4 receptions and receiving yards in a single game. So impressive performance, but he couldn't have done it without his quarterback. So that's where I do think we're starting to see a great relationship form between the wide receiver, the quarterback, and it's the offense is meshing very, very well. So great sign if you're a Renegades fan. But kind of looking back at the whole weekend, we did have some low-scoring games and then some high-scoring games, and I expect that to continue throughout the year. Where I do worry is some of these teams that are putting up less than 20 points. Is that a offensive issue? What is going on there? Is it a quarterback performance? Because like the Kings, that's field goal, field goal, field goal. We need to start putting more touchdowns on the field. It makes a better football product, and I do think that's what Repo would like to see. I don't blame him because that's also what the fan wants to see. We want to see some exciting action. We want something to engage us. We want to not only watch a game, but in a 19-9 game, that's a close game. So we want to feel like the Kings at least have a chance, and that's where I feel like that feeling didn't exist while watching that game. So if you're the league, you're really concerned. You want to see some touchdowns ramp up. So we'll see how it shakes out over the weeks to come. But, we've got what we've got. So let's take a look at the league standings. So Renegades 2-0. Gonna expect them to do that with just stats alone. Then the Storm 2-0. And then we got ourselves 4 1-1 teams. So the Battlehawks, Gamblers, DC Defenders, and Birmingham Stallions, and then the Aviators, and then Kings 0-2. So those two teams at the bottom, I do feel like the Aviators can compete. The Kings, week 1, I thought they could compete. Week 3, I am worried about that team, and I worry what their future holds. I also worry about the Stallions, and I worry more than anything about the Battlehawks. But we'll see if their offense comes together, because then they'll really be a threat. Kind of looking around the league at who's leading. We've got our sack leaders, and what I'll point out here is we have 2 players in the top 6 that are from the Storm. 1 from the Kings, 1 from the Defenders, 1 from the Gamblers, 1 from the Aviators. So the team's not on the list. Unfortunate for them, but there is other aspects of defense. But the fact we've got 2 leaders in defense on the Storm really says a lot about that team. They're competitive. They're going to continue to be competitive. They'll stay in each game. So I expect them to be around each week moving forward. And then when we look at our interception leaders, the Renegades. Really, that's where they've been getting their bread and butter. We got 3 interceptions on the season. That's takeaways. That's potential points. Battlehawks also doing well. I think that's going to be a strong suit of them. And then Sam Kidd gets himself 1 as well. So been impressive showing so far. We'll see how these numbers stack up week to week. But overall, I think we'll really start to see some stars arise in this league. Then kind of looking at our receiving leaders, Vaughn's, of course, leading the way. Badger right behind him, then Jaden Mickens, and then Jonte Kirkland, and then Tay Martin. So pretty good spread. If you're one of these teams, I think you're feeling good about the seasons. But there are quarterback questions on almost all these teams. Not so much these Stallions. Definitely got some. Gamblers, I think, are answering them. Columbus, nope, their quarterback's good as well. So quarterback has a big impact. And then you line those up to the top 5 passing leaders. Oh, Columbus Aviators. Silver's got 1. Jack Plummer, Matt Corral, Austin Reed. So they're kind of setting the pace. I expect these numbers to stay competitive, though Reed may start to blow away on the league. So we'll see how things shake up. Then we look at our rushing yards. Deion Jackson leading the way just off of his week 2 performance. He could be leading the league. Then we got our Storm player, our Aviator, McClendon, top 3 in the league in rushing. Worrisome, seeing as he is a quarterback. And then we've got Jaquandre and Jalen White, both of them really competitive this year. Then we got our sacks, our interceptions, so on and so forth. But let's look at our players of the week. So our quarterback, Nolan Henderson, really did well, though I don't believe he was on. Yes, our No, not even on our top 5 passers for the week. So we'll see if that continues into the weeks to come. But so far, really looking good for the gamblers. You know, you got a player of the week, your quarterback's doing good, your offense is coming together. You just won a game in week 2. You're starting out 1-1. That's basically going or starting from 0. Then their kicker, special teams player of the week, really, really deserved. 5 for 5 on field goals, 50 yards the longest. I think it was impressive. I think he'll have a larger part of the offense moving forward because if they can get him within 50 yards, you know, we're talking points every single time they get the ball. And if that becomes consistent, look out for them this season. Here's a little action shot of him, 50 yards the longest. It was pretty good, really good showing. And I thought if he didn't get it, they'd give it to Matt McCrane, but I doubt they'd give it to him 2 weeks in a row. And then our defensive player of the week, Sam Kidd, 7 tackles, 1 interception. The interception really was impactful. You know, there was times in the Aviators game where the Aviators could have took a lead, they could have ran away with it, but their defense really put them out. Let's just say. But now I want to take a turn and look at viewership across the league for week 2. So saying that we're doing all right, but there are some questions going on. So we've got our Friday night games. They're rising 13% year over year. So we're sitting about 750,000 viewers right now. Tuesday night game held steady about 500,000. I am not surprised, seeing as there was, a lot going on that day. Also, it was a Tuesday night, which was unexpected for most, but pretty much a good kind of trend, let's say, going on right now. We're creeping up to 1 million, so if we can get there by the end of the season, I think the league's in a really good shape. But we do have some conflicting information, so this one's coming from Pro Football Talk. Looking here, that we're just averaging about 842,000. So that Friday night game did pretty well. Saturday, then we've got a look at our attendance, which was pretty good, at least for the Aviators. Renegades got worse, so that's a question right away. Gamblers, I'd like to see a stronger showing, but at the same time, it was raining pretty much the entire game, so I'm not surprised that their attendance was so low. Storm going down, worrisome. I'd like to see these numbers tick up, tick up, tick up. Aviators, though, impressive job. Really, really, really well done. And I think their fan base is going to be persistently showing out. And if the team can start to win more, then I think we'll really be, or at least the state of Ohio, will be in spring football for a while. Then let's turn now. Look at some power rankings that we'll have for the year or for week 2. This is a look at what we had week 1. Battlehawks number 2, Stallions number 3, Orlando Storm number 4, Kings number 5, DC Defenders number 6. So let's see how things change for week 2. So of course Renegades at the top again, and then we've got the Storm. They're sitting in second, on account of that 2-0 record. Battlehawks sitting in third, which I think is surprising, but they did hold their own pretty well against the Renegades. Then we've got the Defenders coming in our 4th spot. I would have the Battlehawks and Defenders switched, but ultimately, to each their own. And then the Stallions still being above the Gamblers, I think is justified. That game came down to the last minute. Either one of these teams could have won. So I think that's justified. And then the Kings over the Aviators, I think, is a surprising call, let's say. The Aviators seem to be a more complete team and seem to have less issues. But the Kings have been able to at least show out to a degree. So I expect them to remain competitive throughout the future. Then we got our power rankings from Fox. So we'll take a look at RJ Young's power rankings that he's got for us. So his number 8 team is, of course, the Aviators. So kind of aligning with what the league had. And then we've got the Louisville Kings. They'll be the number 7 team. So looking here at the odds for these two teams, we've got 2,500 for the odds to win the championship. So things are almost looking better for the Aviators than they are for the Kings, which is where I'd say maybe these two are kind of switched because the Aviators offense did look competitive. Kings, they got questions. Then we move on to the sixth spot. So we got the Stallions here, which on the original list we had the Gamblers. So an interesting spot here. I agree more with this placement for the Stallions than on the original list. And then we got the Defenders in the 5 spot. Not terrible. That's where our Stallions were on the original list, but I ultimately feel the Defenders probably should be a little higher. So I probably would have just switched Houston and Birmingham's placement. But looking at that, odds to win the title, both sitting about 360, and I think either one of these teams could win the championship, but I would expect the DC Defenders odds to go up as the season progresses, and of course, as the season progresses. So, looking at our number 4 team, we've got the Houston Gamblers. So I think this is a high placement for them. I really do. And honestly, probably should be lower. But I respect it. They did have a good showing. They won a tight game. Odds to win the title, 2,500. I do think that may be a little unlikely. But regardless, a great showing out of the Gamblers. Probably should be in like that 5 or 6 spot, but I can respect the 4 spot. So the St. Louis Battlehawks, this is where I do have questions. In the 3 spot, that seems to be consistent across the 2 rankings. I don't know that I agree with that, though. I think they should probably be lower towards that 5 spot, and then maybe DC should be above that just because off of the run game. Really impressive showing. And their odds to win the title, 550. Possible if they can get home field advantage through the playoffs. I would not be surprised if it does happen. Then looking at our number 2 ranking, this is the same as the other list. We got the Orlando Storm. Odds to win 425. I think those are good, and those are probably, they've got a good shot, and I would expect those odds to get better for them as the season continues. Then the Renegades, they're sitting at 275 right now. That's probably, not probably, but there's a good chance of them winning and taking home the championship. So I do agree with them, of course, at that number 1 ranking. And then we got a little other ranking to throw on top of here. This one's coming from our boy Football Junkie. Shout out to you, my good sir. So starting at the 8th spot, we got the Kings. I like that placement. And then we got the Aviators in the 7th spot. That's probably where it should be. I think the Gamblers and the Stallions probably should be flipped between the 2 of them, just because, one, they won the game, but also I think the Gamblers are starting to look like a more complete team than what the Stallions were. So I do have questions about the Stallions, how things will go, and that new coach. I do think you need to start building that experience, which kind of has shown. 4 spot for the Defenders, I do agree with, but honestly, I would switch them in the Battlehawks. The Battlehawks did have a good showing, though, so I can respect their placement in the 3rd spot. No one's going to argue with the 1 and 2 placements, of course. But all in all, I think we're starting to see a separation of the pack. So especially after week 3, we were really going to start to see it. But now I wanted to switch over. So I do them bi-weekly power rankings. So we're just kind of more tiers than power rankings. So we're going to start off with our down bad team. So surprisingly enough, our worst team was the Kings. And really, they are down bad. The offense is looking pretty bad, and it's not complimentary. Their defense does do all right, but it's not helping the team. So that's where I think they need to start being kind of more complete, and we might see them be more competitive over the year. Then we've got the Gamblers. I think they're on the come up. But I think their defense really needs a lot of work, specifically the defensive backfield. The corners, the safeties, what's going on in our when we're getting these deep passes, whatever it is. We need to have a competitive defense that can kind of keep the team. If they can get one stop. I think the Gamblers offensively can take a lead in any game. Then we got the Battlehawks, their offense. They're really not showing up in big moments. They're kind of messy. They're a little sloppy. So I really do want to see them kind of tighten things up. And especially when they're playing at home, I think that crowd can really help them win some games. Next, with our Aviators, the wide receiver room. What are we doing here? That's why you could be better. That wide receiver room needs training. It needs to kind of congeal together. They need to be on the same page, and that's not happened yet. And with a head coach that was a wide receiver, that is a little bit of a surprise for me. So I do wonder what will happen with the Aviators, especially as the season goes on, because as it stands right now, quarterback needs help. McClendon's out there. He's running the ball every time. You saw that he is kind of leading the league in rushing yards. So what are we doing here? Then for the Stallions, that's where my personal questions start to arise with their defense. It seems inconsistent. It doesn't seem like they're getting to the quarterback as much as they should be, and the offense is paying the price. The Stallions get a couple defensive stops in the game against the Gamblers, and they probably win the game. But the Gamblers just kept going down, kept marching down the field, racking up yards, and it really tires out your defense. So you need to get them off the field and back on to the team. Our balling team, that's going to be the DC Defenders. They really showed out in week 2. Impressive job, I think, by them, though I got questions. What's going on with Tom? We're throwing interceptions every week. That's holding the team back. And ultimately, the rushing game did well for you in week 2. But what happens when it doesn't? Do you lose the game? That's where I think the questions are going to start to arise for the Defenders. And then our almost great team, the Orlando Storm. I'd like to see them clean some things up. I think they could be good. They could be supreme. But as it stands right now, I think, head-to-head matchup with the Renegades, probably not going to go too well for them. Defense is doing very well. Offense is doing very well, but I just need it to kind of be more complete. And as they play more games, that'll happen naturally. Defense, more in their passing defense is where it's needed, I suppose, the most attention. And then Arlington really doing well. I think the running game could see a little bit of training. I don't know. An enhancement is really what it needs. A couple more yards, just give them a more dynamic offense, and they might just walk their way to the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But all in all, when we compare this, my list's pretty much the same. Battlehawks I had a lot lower than what the other list would have had. But other than that, pretty much consistent with what we've been seeing across the pontificators. Then in our week 2 look ahead, our game of the week is going to be our Saturday showdown. But let's start off with our Friday night football. A rematch of last week, except going to be home for the Kings. So the Storm will be traveling to Louisville. And we'll see what happens between the two. I expect a similar result as last week, but the Kings could shock the Storm. And also that home field advantage, not something I think that the Storm has experienced yet this year. So look to that to be a good show. And after the Gamblers showing last week, everyone's going to be looking to see how are they going to do this in week 3. Is this going to continue, or are we going to see them go on a little bit of a run here? But DC, they're hot right now. Their offense is moving good. Yeah, Tamu's got questions, but their offense, their team is really showing out, and it's really coming together well. So it seems like we're going to have 2 freight trains running into each other. But we'll see exactly how it turns out for the Gamblers. It could be a close game, could not be. We'll see how that shakes out for them. Then for our Sunday starter, got the Aviators visiting Arlington. Probably not going to go too well for the Aviators, but the team is coming together, so I expect them to hopefully put up some points, and it should be a competitive game. Though the chance does remain that Arlington's just going to light the skies on them. And then our Sunday seconds, last game of the week, we've got Birmingham visiting the Battlehawks, and this might actually be the true game of the week. Team-wise, I think could be a low-scoring game, could be not a lot of points, not a lot of yards, but the storylines in this game actually might be the most interesting of all. We got A.J. McCarron making his return to St. Louis. There was a little bit of a falling out between the two when he was a player for the team, so we'll see if he's looking to get some revenge, or if Birmingham does kind of give him the show, I suppose. And now I wanted to turn it over, kind of look back at the weekend. So who had the best weekend in the UFL? And I want to say it was the Gamblers. Really did put on a show, won a game, beat a good coach, beat a good team, and I think they did a lot for their franchise with that win in week 2, and ultimately a lot for that team. I think they're going to be coming into week 3 hungry, ready to compete, so should be a good time for them. Worst of the weekend, UFL social media team posting like best touchdowns of the weekend or of week 2 before week 2 even concludes. I get it, you can always edit and re-upload the video, but at the same time, what are we doing here? Just not a great look for the league, but do what you got to do. And I respect the grind. Then I wanted to do a couple overreactions now. So starting off, our first one, I think Houston might make the playoffs. Is it an overreaction? You'll have to let me know in the comments or in the chat. But what I would say is maybe. They got a good shot right now. The team looked good. If they can kind of tighten a few things up, I think they'll make a run. Then our next overreaction. Storm is built for a collapse. I think this is an overreaction. I think they're going to be a competitive team throughout the season. I think they'll be back in the playoffs. But ultimately, I don't know how far they'll go. But I don't see them collapsing at all mid-season. Our next overreaction. Stallions, bottom 3 this year. Possible. It could happen. They're in for a tough showing this week, so they fall to 1 and 2. They're going to sink down the rankings. They're going to sink down everything, especially the standings. So they could. We'll see how the team looks this week. Next overreaction. Battlehawks lose every away game. I do not think this is an overreaction, surprisingly enough. They definitely look better when they're at home than when they're not at home. But all in all, their offense just really isn't getting it done, it would seem. And then our final overreaction, I think the running backs might be overrated in this league. So far, they really have not made themselves a game factor. DC they did Jackson really did a good job, but overall across the league, the running backs have been basically just different receivers, and it seems like kind of the passing game has been the main focus for the league, at least kind of right now. So we'll see what happens. But as we kind of look ahead to next week, I did kind of want to look over the storylines we have for the games ahead. So week 3, we've got the Orlando Storm at the Louisville Kings. Friday, 8 p.m., going to be on Fox, Lynn Family Field Stadium. Great venue, and I hope the fans show out like they did in week 1. This is the thing, just played last week, so how is that going to stack up, back to back at each other? But the questions will be, how is the rest of the league going to compete? And I think the Storm and the Kings, you're going to see them kind of easily pull away from each other, but the rest of these, I think we're going to have tighter games. So Saturday noon, ESPN, Audi Field, so first home game for Washington, DC Defenders. So Nolan Henderson, quarterback, really going to be in there. I think he's going to be really setting the pace for this game. And I do not know why this is happening. So, anyway, our Aviators at the Renegades, that'll be on ABC on Sunday at noon. So our Sunday starter, big, you know the names, Reed and Vaughns. That duo is going to be lighting up the skies again. McClendon probably going to put up some good yardage as well. I love how they have him listed as a running back as well. What the heck? Not great, but he will probably run for a lot of yards. And the Aviators, they're hungry. They want that first win. And the Defenders, they had questions in week 1, but I think they kind of worked out some of that rust. So it could be a long, tough week for the Aviators. But Renegades, though, I expect them to put up some yardage and really kind of make a larger name for himself. And I wouldn't be surprised if Vaughns and Reed are in the league together next season. Then looking at the Stallions at Battlehawks Sunday, 3 p.m. That'll be a Sunday seconds. That'll also be on ABC. So a little bit of a double header that we've got for the UFL, which is exciting. At least we're getting some more of that ABC action because, that is on a lot more TVs, let's say, than the others. So we'll see what happens. The big storyline here, as I said, is